The education pillar of the women's strategy is all around building the foundations in women's football. One of the key areas with that is increasing the capacity and capability of women in football, but also those who wish to be involved in women's football in the future as well. Education and capacity building is a key priority for OFC, and that's in women's football but also football more broadly as well. And I think putting people at the centre of what we do and increasing their capability, their knowledge in the game is only going to take football in the Pacific further. So it will be a key priority in women's football but also football in general over the coming years. The education pillar covers so many areas, and one of the key areas we're looking at is coaches and referees. Within that as well, there's coach educators, there's referee instructors, there's assistant referees. So you're not just looking at two categories there. I guess there's a lot below that as well. For us in the Pacific, there's a huge amount of effort and emphasis put on education, as we've already touched on, and I think making sure that coaches are not only supported in their formal education but also through mentoring. They're exposed to a higher level of learning through coaches that are overseas, that are in professional environments. Within the Pacific, we don't have much professional football happening at this point in time, so to really support them through refereeing at international competitions or in professional leagues, and making sure that it's not just about educating coaches and referees, but it's giving them an environment where they can put that into practice, I guess, and have these real life experiences and challenge themselves in their own development as well. When I first started back in 2019, there were only 4 women's development officers across the Pacific out of our 11 countries. So to see every country with one now is incredible, and it shows how far the game has come, but it also shows just how much belief general secretaries, presidents and those in decision-making roles are prioritising women's football and see it as a key area for growth, which is really exciting. The 11 member associations as well not only have women's development officers in place now, but you're seeing them starting to develop strategies for the women's game, which is only going to see it go from strength to strength. So yeah, hugely rewarding to see the work that's being done. I mean, you only need to look at countries like Tahiti with Stephanie Spielman leading the way to see what our region is capable of. The Women's Football Development Officers are the key drivers of women's football in each country. For me, it's really important to have a key contact within each member association, someone who's passionate about women's football, someone who's there to oversee and run development programs, but also someone who has a deep understanding of the game, of the challenges, and also ways that we can succeed in the Pacific. So the role of the Women's Development Officer is quite broad. It's from grassroots right through to the elite game. They have a role in upskilling people and educating others within their region. But of course they link in with the technical director and other development officers within the region as well, or within their member association. But having a key person to drive it is so important for that continued growth. Within football, it's a very male-dominated environment, and I think having a woman at the centre of that is key for challenging some of those gender stereotypes that we do see in the game. But also, it can be difficult when you're one woman trying to influence women's football in an entire country. So what we're actually starting to see is technical directors, general secretaries, really getting behind and supporting the women's development officers, and that's shown in countries such as Samoa, where they now have multiple people, multiple women dedicated to the women's game. So it's not just having one person who's responsible for everything, but it's acknowledging that actually we do need to see more women in the game. They need a team behind them, and it is everyone's responsibility to increase and develop the game as well. One of the key programs that we've released a couple of years ago with the support of FIFA was the OFC Women's Football Capacity Building Program. And there's two sides to that. One is to increase the capacity and the capability of the women's development officers themselves. And there we're focusing on their ability to lead, but also their ability to facilitate and manage workshops and courses. And then through that, they're also then building the capacity of a group of women in the community or volunteers within football within their country as well. So there's two sides to it, and I think it's really important that in roles that they're in as educators, that they're continuously learning and developing on new ways of engaging with people that are attending the workshop, how to keep people interacting, what is the best way to communicate with women across the Pacific. So it's developing them as leaders, them as educators, while they're trying to do the same to other people. And it's really rewarding to see the growth that we're seeing in them and also in the community too. I think one of the key things is we often put people into roles and they're young and they're keen and they're passionate and they're very, very hard workers, but actually making sure that, when they're in a role where they are making decisions and they are leading and often leading a team around them, they too need to be developed as leaders. So it's really important that we develop them as leaders, we build their capability. So while we expect them to deliver that and do that for people around them, their volunteers they're working with, we also need to make sure that they're supported in that journey. And there's so much potential across the Pacific, and we see it in all the women's development officers, but you have to give them the opportunity to thrive and create a space where they can really reach their potential. So that's what we're trying to do with the women's development officers. When it comes to the women's football strategy, the thing I'm most proud of is the input that we've had from all of our 11 member associations. So it was really important to me from the beginning that we created a document for women where they were at the centre of it, but we wanted the impact to be much greater than that, and we knew in order to do that we would have to get support from everyone in the game. So I'm really proud that every one of the 11 member associations has played a role in developing it, but also now the challenge back to them is you've developed it, you've been a part of it from the beginning, and now we need to bring it to life together.